good day. I think is safest. Good night and good morning. It's a good day to everybody. সবাইকে webinar এসে জানাচ্ছি। আমরা আগে একটা webinar was a good one that was on Bangladesh India relations. Then Dr. Rashid Titumir was also there, and Shamsher Mobin Chaudhary and Ambassador Tariq Karim, and also Dr. Dilara Chaudhary, Shahid Anam Khan, Brigadier Shakhawat was also there. And that is recorded. That is recorded. If anybody are interested, we can send it again. So today our main, what we think or what we expect in terms of Bangladesh. We are privileged to have our TDF member, Dhaka Forum member, Dhaka Forum Ali Riaz web page একটু দেখতে পারেন ওখানে আছে. So we welcome Dr. Ali Riaz and Dr. Iftikhar, Ambassador Shamsher Mobin Chaudhary, Dr. Harun, Dr. Abrar, and our members are Abu Nasir Bakhtiar Ahmed, then Ambassador Shamim, Shiraj Islam, myself there. Then we're expecting Ambassador Shahid Akhtar also. Iftikharul Karim, I don't know whether he'll join. And Raza Chaudhary. Raza Chaudhary is our team member. Incidentally, he was the first private secretary to our present honorable minister, prime minister. Sorry, first. Mane Rashida Chaudhary Mama arki. He is a very active member, but he's traveling. He just left Dhaka yesterday. So, okay, we'll start. The modality is just, it can be in English or Bengali. Amio Bangla English dikho, but I'm to kom kotha bolboi. Bishwag, you will say. And as I told you, that specifically ekebare je US elections, ekebare utare. Mainly, we are interested in Bangladesh perspective, whether their foreign policy will change. Although bipartisan issue to ekebare ekdom right থেকে লেফটে যাবে না বা whatever it is একেবারে মানে আমেরিকান কনটেক্সটে, but we expect that there will be something good for us, for the world also, because Trump has withdrawn from multilateral fora, UN এবং Paris talk এবং TPP থেকে withdraw. China has filled in the gap. So সেখানে কিন্তু Bangladesh is very important. And in fact I gave a few lectures in NDC, National Defense College, on economic security of Bangladesh. I raised the point that Bangladesh has become a kind of a playing ground for others, especially Bay of Bengal, among other Bangladesh, India. So we should be careful about economic security, but it is based on political security, of course. That is very important. So that's it. And lastly, what will be the US role in our Myanmar? You have seen today the resolution হয়েছে. As usual, India, Nepal, and other, they didn't vote for the resolution, but other countries, China, as usual, veto দিয়েছেন. So it's a very complex issue. So in that context, আমাদের political interest, আমাদের economic interest, and our march towards our future, the higher mid-level income, that should be. And I request the relevant issue, your opinion is free to say. What I'll do, we'll have second round today. Last time we couldn't have a second round because second round point counterpoint থাকতে পারে. So first I'll allow say 7 minutes each যদি বলি first round. Then you can come again for second round, even if it is possible third round also. So what I'll do, first I'll start. If you don't mind, I may mention something. It doesn't mean that there are others are not, but mention should be the amaro sequence should be the So Ambassador Shirajul Islam, our founding member, he'll present the issue paper. That has been circulated also as a small paper. So Shobuz can not necessarily read out the paper, but what are the major issues and we expect. Then other members, of course, are free to raise issues and relevant point. So let me see the clock also. I'll have to watch the watch, as I say. This is 10:08, 8 minutes past 10 in our time. So 7 minutes, that means 10:15. 10:15, Ambassador Shobuz can confirm, but of course, you have got some liberty. So Please, I request, and I think everybody knows everybody, most of them. TDF member knows Dr. Iftekhar Ahmed Choudhury, we know Dr. Shamsher Mahmood Choudhury, Ambassador, we know. Dr. Ali Riaz is also known to all of us. And of course, Dr. Harun is also there, Dr. Dilara Choudhury. I cannot see in my screen. Maybe
she just joined. She just joined.
Dr. Iftekhar is also there. Just now. So I'll request Mr. Shiraz Islam Choudhury to introduce the issue, not issue paper per se, but the issue which we'd like to discuss in this, and it can be Bengali also. Bangla to bolte paro kono oshubidha na. And please remember, it is being recorded. It is being recorded, whatever you say, and your faces are also will be recorded. Thank you. And sorry, we also have somebody. Dr. Ali Riaz has invited Sharmeen. She is most welcome. She can put on her video also, and others who would like to invite, you can give the meeting number and passcode. They can also join us. It's not a streaming, so you have to give the passcode and meeting number. Thank you very much. So Shobuz, এখন তুমি শুরু করতে পারো.
Thank you, Dr. Salahuddin. I'm speaking from Maryland, United States. Again, it is past 11 o'clock at night. So from my perspective, it's a good evening, and to everybody in Dhaka, it's a good morning. From here, Dr. Ali Riaz is from here. Dr. Harun Khan is from here. So we are in the night zone. We are in the United States, where it is evening. In my place, it's quite late at night. So with those words, and the other thing to just focus, to just remind you, to let you know, my name is reflected here as Asif Rahman. It's because I'm with my son-in-law. Asif Rahman is my son-in-law, and I'm using his computer. So, just think of Asif Rahman as Sirajul Islam. And that is the only point I like to make at this stage. Emnite amar paper ta to amra 4-5 din age I wrote the paper, and this was discussed in the TDF, and this paper is sanctioned by the TDF. So this is the certificate of TDF. It's a TDF paper, which is circulated to all the distinguished members participating here today. So I assume that all of you had a chance to read the paper, which will save me the time from going through the paper and reading out, at this stage. So আমি যেটা করব সেটা হলো এই পেপারটা লেখার পরে the developments that have taken place. There are a few developments that have taken place here. আমি ওটার উপর রিফ্লেক্ট করব. Perspective of the paper, নামটা তো সালাউদ্দিন বলেছে, আমরা এটা দিয়েছিলাম US election and Bangladesh perspectives. The US election তো হয়ে গেছে 3rd of November, and subsequent to 3rd of November, what you have been seeing, and this is 20th here in Maryland, but 21st in Dhaka, এই যে 18 দিন গিয়েছে in between, this is surreal. This is not what we are accustomed to seeing in a US election and the days after US election. Normally, US election first Tuesday, the date হয় 1st November, but it's a constitutionally set date. কিন্তু ওই রাতেই, in most cases, ওই রাতের ভিতরে ইলেকশনের রেজাল্টটা সবাই জেনে যায়, from the media, who, as they say in America, they call it. কিন্তু এইবার 3rd তো গেছে, এখন it is the 21st. এখনো lingering, but this election has been certified. Today, there are 2 pieces of good news. কয়েকদিন একটু টেনশন ছিল, এখনো যে টেনশন নাই তা না, টেনশনটা মোটামুটি চলে গিয়েছে. But 2 pieces of good news that has not been reflected in the paper. I'd like to make those points at first. Today, in the red state, that's Georgia, they finished their hand count. And just before we came on this webinar, about a couple of hours, or maybe 2, 3, or 4 hours ago, the results of Georgia has been certified. It's been signed and certified by the Secretary of State, which means that Georgia is a piece of good news. It is, as they have written in the media already, is a big blow to whatever Trump was trying to do. The second, Trump had called this.
Dr. Salahuddin, can I just intervene for 1 second?
Yes, please.
Ambassador Siraj, what you are saying is, of course, very important. The thing is that all this is already known. What I would like your view, sitting in America, this obstructionist attitude that Trump and his followers, what it means for the immediate future in terms of transition of power. That the certificate, the legal cases are falling, are failing one after the other. Because all those are
I
being
think-
updated on our news, and
No, no.
better if you could focus on exactly what it means in terms of transition immediately and in the long term, and politically in the long term. Thank you. Sorry for my suggestion.
ওইটাই তো
So-
বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম যে আজকে যেহেতু
Okay.
জর্জিয়াটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট, I have to mention Georgia because Georgia is a secretary, is a red state. The governor is a Republican. The secretary of state is Republican. এখানে আজকে সার্টিফাইড
But
করে
এগুলো এখানে হয়ে গেছে, এগুলো
না না
বেরিয়ে গেছে।
ভাই আমাকে বলতে দাও না, লেট মি স্পিক,
হ্যাঁ।
লেট মি
বলো।
স্পিক। আমি এটা বলেছি এই কারণে যে ওর যে গেম, ট্রাম্প ইজ ট্রাইং টু offset is turn over a legal and legitimate election. Georgia election is important. এই জন্য যে what is now going to happen on the 14th of December when
Now, so what is the next? What is the
Yeah.
next good news?
when the electoral college meets in Washington, they are going to certify select or elect Joe Biden as the next president of the United States of America. A কয়েকদিনের যে tension ছিল, that tension is gone. That is important. That's why I'm mentioning Georgia. And I've also got to mention Wisconsin. Wisconsin, he today brought the parliamentarians from there to get them to offset, to throw out of the window the electoral college, the election that was held on the 3rd of November. The speaker of a Republican legislature in Wisconsin and the speaker, they say they can't do it because the law does not permit them to do it.
Right.
I'm saying this.
Right.
Because
This
now,
is important.
Now the six
This
states,
is what-
now the 6 states say Donald Trump does not have any legal
Right.
ways to do anything with the election. Is as good as a done deal. Is what
Right.
as good as a done deal. But now
That is what you're saying.
now you have mentioned transit because he has not yet allowed Joe Biden to have any access to a smooth transition. And সবচেয়ে বড় কথা হলো, the Americans, they have now found 2 vaccines. Today, the Pfizer vaccine has been submitted to the FDA for approval, which means it will be given an approval any day. Any day. সেটাতে যেটা হবে, this president not only is interfering with the smooth transition, legal transition, or smooth transition, he's also interfering with the lives of Americans. Today, the number of people who have died in America has crossed 253,000. এবং এইটাতে আরো মারা যাবে। Biden day before yesterday said the more obstacles in the smooth transition means more death. So the first answer to your question is not only interfering in smooth and legal and constitutional transition, it is also interfering in the lives of people. এবং এখন যেহেতু ভ্যাকসিনটা এসেছে, ভ্যাকসিনের ডিস্ট্রিবিউশনে এটা লিঙ্গার করছে। Now, to answer your question, why is he doing it? Knowing fully well that he has lost. Now he has lost by all accounts, constitutional and legal. He's doing it. This is the man he is. He knows that he has lost, but still he's causing obstruction because he doesn't want to give Biden the peace of mind till Biden actually becomes the president on the 20th of January, when you will be installed, when will be given his inauguration. তার আগে পর্যন্ত this man is going to do যেগুলো করছে, this is illegal. This would have been illegal not only in America is illegal, I don't have to reiterate it. This would have been illegal if it was being conducted in a country like Idi Amin of Uganda or Zimbabwe of Mugabe. It is even worse than that. This is what Americans are living with at the present moment. But এখানে the important point to be made here, Donald Trump যে কাজগুলো করছে illegal, unconstitutional, unethical, immoral. But the important point is the Republican senators in parliament led by Mitch McConnell is still silent. They have not come out against it. কিছু একজন দুইজন বেরিয়েছে, Mitt Romney বেরিয়েছে, এরা 2-4 জন কথা বলছে। But যেটা হওয়া উচিত, when America কে নাকে দড়ি দিয়ে যখন চুবানি খেয়ে মানে ইদি আমিনের উগান্ডার চেয়ে খারাপ পর্যায়ে নিয়ে গেছে, তখনও এই তোমার রিপাবলিকানরা কোনো কথা বলছে না। This is an important point here. Why are they not saying anything? Because on the 5th of January, there are 2 important elections coming. কারণ জর্জিয়াতে 2টা senatorial election seat, ওগুলা রান অফে যাবে on the 5th of January. হ্যাঁ,
আচ্ছা, আমি একটা কথা জাস্ট সবুজকে জিজ্ঞেস করতে চাই, মিস্টার চেয়ারম্যান।
Yeah.
হ্যাঁ, সবুজ তো বললো যে all doors are closing for Donald Trump, but as regards, I think still harboring some kind of a glimmer of hope, যেটা আজকে বিবিসির একটা ভালো একটা আর্টিকেল রান করেছে যে how can he still undo, একটা বলছে যে এখন can he resort to sort of a practice যেখানে নাকি he can force the governors to change the composition of the electoral college who will eventually vote Mr. Biden in. এটা কি চান্স আছে
না
কোনো?
না ওইটাই তো বললাম, আপনি তো খেয়াল করেন উইসকনসিনে
There's no chance.
না
No, no, there is
governor
no
Acha, na,
chance.
acha, please,
Through the
please,
governors.
my friend, Shabut, and
Hey.
Shami, Ambassador, let us go to the future thing. Let's assume whatever he does,
Biden is in.
Trump does, is all.
না না শামীম ভাই
No, আমরা
শামীম ভাই
এখন
যেটা-
সবুজ না, বেটার হয় আমাদের জন্য যে এখন আমেরিকান পলিসি গুলো assuming that Trump is not there, এখন কি হতে পারে ইমপ্লিকেশন, আমার এখন ও কি করছে, দুষ্টামি
আচ্ছা।
করতেছে, কি করতেছে,
আমেরিকান পলিসি
let's bury him and let's move about what will be the future. আমার ওটা বেটার হয়, আমরা পোস্টমর্টেম করছি বোধহয় এইটা বোধহয় আমাদের জন্য একটু বেটার হবে, এটা
না, না।
এটা হলো আমার
ইয়া সালাউদ্দিন, তোমার পয়েন্ট অ্যাজিউমিং, তুমি যেটা বললে আমি তো অ্যাজিউম না, আমি তো এখন বলছি তো কনফিডেন্টলি that there is nothing is going to happen with the election. Joe Biden will be elected the next president. Now coming to your
then
point,
what will happen?
okay, now আমি তো ওইটা আমার পেপারে আমি ডিটেল করে দিয়েছি, the domestic international strategic and then reflection on Bangladesh. Domestic এ যেটা হবে, he will be the most, he will assume power as the most with America that has never been as divided as it was the since the Civil War. It is as divided as that. তো সেটা নিয়ে আগাবে কিভাবে? He will have, if he does not win the 2 seats in Georgia, he will not have the power in the Senate. Senate will be in the hand of the Republican. তার মানে তার যত policy, but long term and big policies, important policy গুলা, none of those policies will be the election promises will he be able to translate into policies. এটা একটা প্রবলেম হবে। That is American democracy. That American democracy that সবসময় হয়ে এসেছে। Biden, the people who are analyzing this say Biden has 48 years of experience in the Senate. He will find a way of dealing with that with his Senate as a problem.
বলো হ্যাঁ, এটা
এখন যেটা বাইডেনের পলিসি, যেটা ধরো ট্যাক্সেশন পলিসি, তার হেলথ পলিসি, lucky for Biden, a week after his election, on the 10th, the health উপরে সবচেয়ে বড় পলিসিটা affordable health care, Obamacare came before the Supreme Court did not strike it down. The Supreme Court যেখানে Republicans have 60 majority, সেখানে it was turned against the Republican, and it was a favor done to Biden. এখন Biden বলছে, when Biden becomes the president, this will be known as Obama-Biden healthcare. So Biden has already overcome a big obstacle in healthcare. এখন বাকি যে পলিসি গুলো আছে, বলো taxation policy, বলো education policy, these are the things in which, in the democratic way as it has happened in the past, Biden as the next president of America will not have his tax policies, will not have his health policies, will not education policies, and an array of other domestic policies. Shekhane, this will be discussed and resolved as it has happened in the past in the usual democratic way. And then you go to international affairs, international politics. Jeto Donald Trump, what I would like to say, American image abroad, by withdrawing America from interaction with the overseas international countries, withdraw করেছে, he brought America inside. এখন বাইডেনকে দুইটা কাজ করতে হবে. He has to restore the transatlantic alliance that was at the bedrock of American foreign policy, যেটা Donald Trump tried to destroy. এইটাকে রেস্টোর করা will be one of the major work of Biden, but this is almost done because all the European countries have warmly welcomed the election victory of Biden. So that is done. Now the other one, আমাদের জন্য important হলো, what is he going to do with China? Now China তে তো Donald Trump hot and cold, কিছুদিন ভালো কিছুদিন খারাপ, একবার বলেছে যে জিং শিপিং is my friend, তার সাথে ভালো রিলেশনশিপ আছে, আরেকবার তাকে he was blowing hot and cold. But Biden's engagement with China will be engagement করে, he will deal with China very hard but with engagement. So there, and এই দুইটার মাঝখানে একটা যেটা বলতে হবে, Donald Trump will come to the rest of the world after what the damages that Biden will come with his external foreign affairs and strategic policies with the soft face of America. তার মানে তার foreign policy, apart from strategic relationship with China, rest of the world and also South Asia will be determined by issues of democracy and human rights. এই ক্ষেত্রে তুমি যদি দেখো India he has already put India on hold because of what India did in Kashmir and Assam. Assam and Kashmir anti-Muslim. You mentioned anti-Muslim policies in Assam and Kashmir. এটাতে put India on hold. এবং ইন্ডিয়াতে দুইটা যে তোমার অ্যাক্ট আছে, NRA and CAA, এই দুটো অ্যাক্টকে বাইডেন অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন, বাইডেনের ট্রানজিশন টিম has flagged that as anti-Muslim and anti-human rights. And that will, now I'm coming from that to Bangladesh, that will have a reflection in Bangladesh. We will, Bangladesh যেটা হবে, যে আমেরিকানরা দেখেছে 2013-14, when we had the elections in Bangladesh in 2014, we saw in America that was less interested in democracy, less interested in human rights, more interested in issues of so-called Islamic terrorism. But with the Biden administration, this is not going to happen. Biden administration will be more focused on democracy and human rights, less on Islamic terrorism. Islamic terrorism je thakbe na ta na. They will be, the Islamic terrorism will be an important focus, but it will not predominate to the extent that it predominated in 2000.
Okay, Ambassador Shoes, can we stop here for the time being and we'll come to the second round, huh? We can go to the next speaker. Thank you, Mr. Syed. You have given the background, both domestic policies and international policies, and also with respect to South Asia and Bangladesh. So I'll request now Dr. Ali Riaz to come in, please, and Ali Riaz, Dr. Ali Riaz, আপনি আপনার বক্তব্য রাখতে পারেন বাংলা ইংরেজি যেতেও। আমরা 7-8 minutes ধরেছি, so that is the time. But we'll, as I told you, we'll come to the second round also. So that সবাই আমার নিজের হিসেবে। Okay, Dr. Ali Riaz, please.
Thank you, Salahuddin Bhai, for giving me the opportunity. I hope everyone can hear me well. And I'm going to speak for 5 to 7 minutes, and I intend to focus on precisely on the foreign policy or potential foreign policy of the Biden administration, which we are taking for granted at this moment that he would be the president of the United States beginning 20th January noon, and whatever happens before that we are discounting at this moment. I would like to make 4 points at this moment. What are the challenges of the Biden administration? Some have been highlighted by ambassadors already, but let me reiterate. When Biden administration is coming to power, a few things have happened already over the past 4 years, or maybe more than that. Actually, a continuous and incremental process of changes were taking place, which Trump administration completely ignored or deliberately sidestepped. What happened? The most important thing that happened is this incremental change with respect to the center of gravity of power has shifted to Asia and China. And it was anticipated under Obama administration for almost 18 months. The Obama administration worked and developed a Trans-Pacific Partnership. The entire idea of Trans-Pacific Partnership, though it was packaged as a trade deal, it was not a trade deal. Trade deal was just the coding of it. There was the intention of creating and bringing all the Asian and particularly Asia-Pacific countries together under a broad umbrella to make sure that the US influence remains intact, or at least the Chinese influence can be contained and be kept at bay. By having withdrawn from TPP, the very first day the Trump administration had delivered the whole Asia-Pacific to China. And China has taken advantage of it, and they worked, and RCEP is the latest of those initiatives. Having said that, this is the reality that the Biden administration is going to face, because RCEP is already there, and the Chinese administration and শামসুর মুবিন ভাই, সাউন্ডটা বন্ধ করলে আমি কথা বলতে পারবো।
আপনারা মিউট করে কথা বললে ভালো হয়।
চাটা পরে খায় তুমি।
Okay, let me go
Except the
back to,
speakers, others should really mute it. I might keep my mic open, but I don't speak with it. Okay, Dr. Ali, yes.
so this is the reality with respect to the Asia Pacific that Biden administration is going to face, and this would be a major challenge for them. First thing is the Europe, which Ambassador has already mentioned, reestablishing the trust. It would be a little bit easier than positioning itself in Asia and Pacific, because in Europe, it is still Russia has not become a challenge despite its aggressive policies. And the Russia policy of Biden administration would be plain, simple, clear. There is no hesitation on this. There would be pressure on Russia because Russia has interfered, and tried to practically manipulate the election in 2016. Biden administration has not forgotten. And if somewhat Hillary Clinton become involved in the next administration, which there is a possibility, if that happens, Russia is going to pay for it. Whatever means, whatever ways, they will have to pay for it. We can take it for granted. So what happens in with respect to China? The engagement policy would be there. There's no doubt in mind. But how to bring in other countries into the fold would be a major challenge, and that would be the focus. Let us not forget that the major challenge is at home. Two-pronged effort will have to be made at home. One is COVID-19. Despite the fact the vaccine is going to be available, distribution of it, and making sure that Americans are safe and people are not dying under the watch of Biden administration would be a major thrust of this administration. And first 100 days, whenever the vaccine is available, first 100 days would be the test of Biden administration, whether what they spoke for 18 months or at least 9-10 months about the public health system, whether they can actually materialize it. This is the first challenge, domestic challenge. And the second domestic challenge is, of course, the division, the schism that we have seen. But what the Biden administration is going to face if they do not have any command or any majority in Senate, it is not only the domestic politics which would be stopped, it would also be the foreign policy which would have major roadblocks in Senate. So having those problems in his back, pursuing a policy which doesn't speak very bluntly, belligerently against China would be a very difficult task for Biden administration, because they would not like to be seen as quote unquote poodle of China, which Trump and Republicans have tried to portray. And in this instance, as a footnote, let me tell you, I think Mr. Trump is not going to go anywhere. He will stay in US politics and possibly continue until 2024. And 2022 will be his test when the midterm takes place and the House elections are taking place. That is my if not forecast, if not prediction, at least my guess. So this within that broad framework, South Asia would fall into. There is no doubt in my mind that India would remain a major linchpin in US foreign policy with respect to Asia, with the caveat that it would not be a blank check as it has been provided in the second Obama administration, and the Trump administration practically franchised. I actually, on many occasions have described that as McDonaldization of US foreign policy, meaning that basically providing the whole thing to someone to deliver the burger, which has very bad pickles in it, yet people are eating it, and the Washington people thought that they're providing the burger, burger coming out of Delhi is fine, but the pickles are really bad. In the neighborhood, India doesn't have that standing that it used to. It is not a standard bearer of democracy. Hence, this is the situation that they will have to face, that they cannot write a blank check. And that realization seems to be coming in U.S. Department of State. The latest initiative that was taken under the Trump administration, possibly is not a Trump administration's policy, but a State Department policy, to go out to try to somehow bring Bangladesh into it, not via New Delhi, but rather directly. And in this case, the new framework that might emerge, as opposed to the IPS, Indo-Pacific Strategy, I'm expecting, in this case, it is my expectation, that IPS would be reframed, because IPS and Quad, none of them are actually very much effective in terms of containing China, which would be a major thrust, and also enhancing the US influence in Asia Pacific. So those are the challenges. And within that frame, South Asia would fall into. So India is not going to get a blank check. Neither Pakistan is going to get a blank check, which means the smaller South Asian countries might have a space provided they take the advantage. Would Bangladesh take that advantage? If Bangladesh wants to take that advantage, there are two ways that they can do it. One, the focus needs to be on democratization, improving the human rights situation. And most importantly, I think to have a direct connection, sort of dialogue with Washington. That's one way to do it. The second thing, and the most challenging part, would be to have a balanced foreign policy. Over the last 10 years, Bangladesh's foreign policy has been tilted to an India, New Delhi center. Now they're hedging. It is not a radical transformation. It is not a radical realignment that we are witnessing. Possibly Hasina government is trying to do the hedging to have some more negotiation with New Delhi. That is a possibility. The other possibility could be that, they are trying to put their eggs in various baskets just in case. But that needs to be refocused, realigned in some ways, if not a radical realignment. That means that instead of seeing it as a binary in South Asia, particularly in the context of Bangladeshi ruling party and the government needs to take it as a tripartite thing. It's a triangular relationship in South Asia that might emerge, and that would be the issue that they will have to deal and be aware of it. So those are the things that I see as an immediate one. Hopefully I would get another opportunity to explain a few other points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ali Riaz. Just my personal, hedging is a very difficult task in our financial analysis. Hedging depends on very uncertainty, and you have to be very, very careful of which I don't know whether Bangladesh is prepared or capable to do it. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Riaz.
Salahuddin Bhai, I completely agree with you when I use the word hedging, because that is what I'm witnessing. It's like walking on a tightrope, at any point, unless you are a very, good, circus person, it's very difficult to walk on it.
Hedging মানে তো বেড়া দেওয়া, সেই বেড়াটা construct করা আবার কিভাবে দেবে সেটা difficult. Thank you very much. Now, as it is getting interesting, the point. Now I'll request Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed Chaudhary, our
Thank you,
former advisor, ambassador. Iftikhar bhai, you know the modalities, so please give your ideas.
Thank you. Thank you, Salahuddin. Thank you for this opportunity again. And I would like to congratulate Shobuj, of course, for presenting an excellent framework for our discussions today. We've had interactions, several interactions on various issues at various points in time. It was lovely to hear Ali Riaz again, and as was to be expected, a most stimulating presentation. If I could start with our aspiration, Bangladesh's aspiration in this changing global circumstances. I would assume that it should be our desire to retain the maximum maneuverability in terms of policy making. Now, this is rendered difficult by the fact that we are on a regional matrix, a very, very powerful neighbor. Now, how would a weaker neighbor deal with a powerful neighbor? Now, I've in an earlier avatar looked at Scandinavian foreign policies, and there's a person called Erling Björl who had worked on Finland's relations with the Soviet Union, and he had spoken of pilot fish behavior as a model. Now, this is a behavior where the fish tends to tack very close to the shark in order not to be eaten. Now, drawing from Riaz's point, yes, Bangladesh tended, I thought, to behave in that fashion vis-a-vis India. Tacked close in order to avoid being eaten. But now what happens is that what has happened is, as right-wing Hindutva fervor takes root in India, and the ruling BJP feels the need to tap into these sentiments for electoral success. Now, I'm saying that these are shared sentiments between the electorate and the ruling party. This is not to say that one or the other is to be blamed. I mean, both are on the same in the same camp. So this reverts politics in South Asia back to almost our historical roots. It is the relationship between the two major communities in the territory. Now, earlier on, these communities were not sovereign. I mean, there was one India, British India. So today we see a reflection of many of the same attributes of politics in the relationship between the countries. In other words, you see, this broad dichotomy within the Indian ethos is defining some of the relationship between the states on the periphery of India with the heartland India itself. This is in many ways, sad to say, the Muslim-Hindu divide. Now, this is exacerbated by the absence of whatever sense of commonality that the now defunct SAARC used to provide at some point in time. Now, the natural corollary for us, the Bangladeshi Muslim, I mean, the Bengali Muslim, which is the Bangladeshi largely, and this is not an option which was available when we were not sovereign. Now that the Bangladeshi Muslim is sovereign in the form of Bangladesh, we have the option to turn to others, to other state actors, global state actors, in order to develop a web of linkages which would reduce the power gap with this powerful neighbor that we have. Now, these regions being, of course, Europe as a market spurring or our export-driven policies, Middle East, which is a source of material and also spiritual support. We have this, and from where I live, from my perch, I can see this happen almost every day, the ever exponential growth of the power, economic power of Southeast and East Asia. And okay, I mean, and also aspiration on the part of many smaller countries in the region to follow these Southeast Asian countries in a flying geese paradigm, to draw strength from the geese that lead the flock. And America for aid, trade, and cultural purposes. And finally, China for a whole spectrum of reasons, investments, infrastructure, military procurement, etc. Now, to cut to the chase, the US elections, yes. Now, the US relationship with the rest of the world is going to impact on the rest of the world and thereby impact on our relationship with the rest of the world in some fashion. Now, India, I mean, both Ali Riaz and Shobuj have spoken of the impact of the incoming Biden administration on India. I assume that the Biden administration will be more institutional rather than instinctual, which Trump was. He was moved by instincts. It is also true, as Riaz has said, that there will be a continued linkage with India, a structural strategic linkage, but it will obviously lack the hullabaloo, the tamasha of the Howdy Modi period. That will be gone. Shobuj has mentioned Kashmir, CAA. Yes, these will play a very prominent role. Also because of a congresswoman by the name of Pramila Jayapal, who has said that if there is to be this conference of democracies that Biden is talking about, India will be put on the dock. So we can expect some opposition to this whole idea of Biden's idea of this conference of democracies from some typical pro-American entities in this part of the world, India included, who are not in practice, are not effusive in their practice of democracies. Vietnam, for instance, India for another, etc. So we can see Biden walking a very tight rope in this regard. On China, yes, what the administration will probably do is to put a floor in the policy so that, you know, it's not a bottomless basket in terms of policies on China. Some see a hardening, of course, but you see, my sense is that, you know, you have people like Kissinger and all that now advising and counseling restraint on both sides. Already in Beijing, they talk of, netizens are talking of calling the forbidden city for Biden city. So there is a growing enthusiasm in China for the Biden administration, but the Chinese party and the state is not likely to respond to it. In other words, is likely to respond in a measure for measure manner. We have actually seen almost about 3 revolutions in China. We discussed China at length the last time round, but not so thoroughly. First revolution, of course, is Mao Zedong, I mean, who got the Chinese people to stand up. Deng Xiaoping, the market orientation, which made China prosperous. And now you have Xi Jinping, who has opted for a strong state, a strong party, and a strong position on foreign policy issues. So what we will see is, as China races to reach a peer status, we will see, of course, an end to the unipolar world. Not that the world is anxious or the world feels nostalgic about American leadership. In other words, in the post-pandemic world, America will not be the leader, nor can it be what it was. Not just because of the examples of its dysfunctional politics domestically, but also because in the 4 years a dislocation of America in the global system, what has happened is other regions have taken the lead. Asia, for instance, in our part of Asia, RCEP, the world's largest trade pact, the new version of the TTP. So in many ways, the leadership will now pass on to Asia in a way that was, okay, I mean, in some ways, what would be a relevant example would be how before the Second World War, we had the Great Britain as the principal global power, and almost imperceptibly, it passed on to the United States. So today is Asia or China or Southeast Asia going to be the new Rome to America's Greece? That is a very, very big question. So, but the point that I'm making with regard to Bangladesh, and this is a very simple thesis that I have, is that we have to reprogram ourselves to look beyond the region to the world. Region we live in concord with, but distinct from. In other words, policies vis-a-vis India must be, we live in concord with India, but we live distinct from it. This is a simple thesis, but I believe this to be an incontrovertible one. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Iftikhar, for your thoughtful talk. And I'll now just it seems I'm not a foreign policy expert, but I think Bangladesh policy at foreign policy, that friends of everybody managed to none, but it seems that Bangladesh hasn't made too many friends. At the recent resolution, you see, many of the countries have kept their apps, even if country like Philippines, they didn't vote, they didn't need anything anyway. And it seems that bull has entered in our relationship, and bull has killing all the sheep, which Dr. Akhtar Hamid Khan once remarked that bulls of Ayub Khan's basic democracy has killed all democratic institution in then Pakistan. So the bull is, what is the bull, and whether we can avoid that bull just besides us. Anyway, thank you very much, Dr. Iftikhar. I'll request Ambassador Shamsher Mobin Chaudhary to come in now and to give his views. Ambassador Shamsher Mobin Chaudhary.
Thank you, Dr. Salahuddin, and indeed, thanks to Ambassador Siraj for a very comprehensive working paper on which we can talk. Let me just, in the 7 minutes that I have, say when Trump assumes office on the 20th of January, what would be his first priority? His first priority, sorry, when Biden enters office and Trump leaves. The first priority, of course, as everybody has agreed, and I think Ambassador Siraj has also referred to that, is fighting the COVID-19, because this is something goes beyond politics, goes beyond health. It affects the very physical health of the American population. His second priority, I think, will be Trump may be gone on 20th January, but Trumpism has taken roots. And Biden, as far as I understand, had promised only one term for himself. So he has 4 years to contain a toxic ideology, if you want to call it an ideology, that is Trumpism, that has become very deep-rooted. And Trump is eyeing 2024. So Biden's policy will be to weaken the Trumpism in America. So those are his first priorities domestically. In the international arena, I believe his first priority will be to re-engage the US in the global arena, as everybody has said, the United Nations on health issues, WHO, climate, and all that, because that is also related to re-establishing credibility for the United States in the global focus. The next, of course, will be to bring the traditional allies back, which is across the Atlantic in NATO, Europe, and Canada and Mexico. So those are his first two major foreign policy priorities. This, I think, is going to be his. One thing we'll see it as I think Dr. Iftihar also mentioned, that will be much more institutional policy making instead of knee-jerk, whimsical, ad hoc decisions via Twitter. That will be replaced by more professionalism, by more clearly thought through situation. But in the 4 years that we have seen, the world has changed a lot, and that's mostly because of Trump's inability or unwillingness to look at the world, America as a part of that world. China has emerged, Asia is emerging. So those will be a thing, how he restores America's position in the global. But more than the Bangladesh-US bilateral context, maybe they would like more interest to see where Bangladesh can be placed in America's geopolitics in the region. Now, Trump, immediately after taking office, threw TPP out of the equation. Trump took TPP out. Now, in the meantime, RCEP has come into being. And RCEP is without America. There is a door open for India. India may still join, but may not join. So RCEP has given China a massive upper hand in Asia and even beyond. It goes to Japan, it involves Australia. All those are allies of the United States, either through Quad or in the IPS or in the broader geopolitical context. So here, America is starting from a back foot. That RCEP, now even if TPP comes in, I don't know whether they will be able to create a new TPP or something, come up with a new TPP, because RCEP has overtaken events. That will be the, I think, major focus of America. How do they circumvent RCEP and bring in TPP? Like I was talking to the ambassador of Japan just the evening before, and he said America has lost out. And I don't know how much Biden can regain, lost out because of RCEP, and how much America can regain if they bring TPP back again, and if they can at all bring TPP back again because of RCEP. So America is starting on a back foot here. Even countries like Japan and Korea and Australia, all of which are RCEP members, are upset about TPP not being there. As regards the focus on democracy and human rights, I think as a matter of holistic principle, that is a great thing to talk about. But anybody who knows the United States or big players, and all of you are very knowledgeable in that, the fact remains that geopolitics takes priority over issues of human rights and democracy for the United States. Otherwise, the first country they'll strike off the list as a friend and ally will be Egypt. The second will be Thailand. And there are crores of others. I don't even want to mention the names of the Gulf countries. So I'm not so sure that democracy and human rights will play a decisive role. It will be mentioned. I mean, Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, came to Bangladesh, and I saw firsthand how her focus was more on keeping Bangladesh on their side and also mentioned human rights and democracy, but not the other way around. She did not say that our relationship with Bangladesh will depend on how much you're doing credible elections, what is your human rights situation, what will become of importance, and that is mentioned in Ambassador Siraj's paper, is the bipartisan letter, because that has been signed by Bob Menendez. If the Senate gets 50-50 seats and the vice president will have the deciding vote, then that letter will now gain much greater relevance. A new State Department in the Biden administration may actually take cognizance of that letter. And then we'll see how they follow up on that, how much they follow up on that. Will they follow up on that at all? Or will not push Bangladesh to a position where, given the fact that America has marginalized itself, has become a weaker player, will risk annoying even a small player in South Asia, small in the sense of, economic and military power, and say, okay, you have human rights problem, you have democracy problems, you have election problems, or say, okay, you have this problem, but we want to be a partner in our geopolitical outreach in Asia and beyond. So that is something very, very, this is still a matter of conjecture, we do not know. But I think that bipartisan letter will probably find more prominence now, because it was written in the end days of Trump, but it can regain a life if there is a balance in the Senate, and Bob Menendez becomes one of the major players in the Senate, and the 50-50 with the vice president having the role. So that is something that Bangladesh needs to watch out for. Also, what is the impact of long-term impact, if any, of that letter? So this is, we still need to watch, and it's very good that we're having the discussion. We're having this, because these are all like airing our thoughts, making conjectures, and waiting for the best thing to happen for Bangladesh. At the same time, Bangladesh will be interested to engage America much more substantially now in the Congress, in the Hill, with the think tanks, with the administration, with the White House, and whether we have the capability. Now, in a very recent article that I wrote, published in the Dhaka Tribune, and when Dr. Ali Riaz talked of hedging, I said that the goal of balancing strategic partnership is a very noble one. Achieving that is a much bigger challenge, because it is not easy for a country like Bangladesh to be able to balance strategic partnership when you have players who have competing and conflicting interests in the region and beyond. So these are things that we need to wait and see how Bangladesh arms or tools itself in a way that it can become more relevant. We have proven to be, I guess, a responsible player. Regarding India, this is very interesting, because you Google and you'd see Kamala Harris, as senator, make a very strong statement when Article 370 was removed from the Constitution. She's on record to say that let the Kashmiris know they are not alone. How will that be a factor in defining Indo-American relationship in the future under the Biden administration? Will Kamala Harris not make a statement, go back on that, say, okay, that I made a senator, now I'm vice president, I think differently? I would not rule that out. Many things you can say when you're not in the White House or connected to the White House, when sitting in the Senate. But when you're sitting in the White House and become part of the administration, not part of the legislature, then you need to forget some of the things you uttered in the past in the larger geopolitical interest of the United States. The second thing, of course, is the reality that in India, it is effectively has become a one-party country because of the weakness of the Congress party. One last point, Dr. Salahuddin. Dr. Iftikhar has reiterated this shark concept, Finland and the USSR. And I had told him when he was advisor, he also mentioned that. I'm not so sure if the American Indians would like to be called a shark, because shark has a very negative connotation. If it is Australian white shark, it is dangerous. If it's a Maldivian shark, it is not so dangerous. So I don't think the shark and the small fish.
I didn't say it in order for that to please them. I exactly meant what you said.
Okay.
Okay,
Now,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank,
Thank you, Dr. Salahuddin. Thank you.
thank you, Ambassador Shamsher Movin Chaudhary. Thank you very much. Now, I'll request Dr. Dilara Chaudhary to come in, please. And the time we'll try to confine with 7 minutes for the first round. Dr. Dilara Chaudhary, please.
Thank you, Dr. Salahuddin, for inviting me to this webinar. I am here actually as an observer. I had told Ambassador Shomuj that I will actually, uh, get to know what these great people are thinking about Biden administration and in that context, administration's foreign policy, uh, uh, for the world at large, and also how it is going to impact Bangladesh. Now, a lot has been said actually. Dr. Ali Riaz and Iftikhar and Shamsher Mobin Chaudhary very poignantly actually discussed about the problems, I shouldn't say problems, but detrimentals Biden administration may face when it takes over the administration in terms of its domestic situation. When you have bad domestic situation, we actually never thought we will watch this kind of drama in American election. This was really unheard of. But anyway, this 4 years of administration, Trump administration, and the election results have demonstrated that it is a deeply divided country. And everybody knows, everybody present here, and those who think about a state and its functionaries, that any divided nation is weak. So America, which has, I would not say that it has totally lost its leadership, world leadership, which the Japanese ambassador has told Ambassador Shamshinuddin Chaudhary. But no doubt, because of Trump's policies, America has lost its leadership that, project its leadership capability in that way. It has not given any leadership when it came to climate. It didn't give any leadership when the pandemic, the world was affected by the pandemic. Withdrew from Human Rights Third Council of the United Nations. So in a way, America during Trump administration had taken somewhat a backseat when it came to world leadership. So it will be somewhat, I feel, difficult for Biden to gain that kind of leadership America had before Trump administration took over. It will face, for example, when the power has shifted, world power has shifted to Asia. Withdrawing from TPP was the worst thing American administration could do. But to gain, especially Shamsul Momin Chaudhary, I was talking to Ambassador Shubuz the other night about RCP, that this free trade agreement, which has been signed by these Asian countries, along with 5 powers, including China. And it has definitely put China, India in the leadership position in Asia Pacific area. Now, when at the same time, I would say that, America, although it has lost some of its aura about world leadership, but, it's a power to be reckoned with. So Biden administration probably, I feel, will try to contain China through engagement. So he will have to, when it comes to IPS, he will have to actually rearrange the whole idea. You cannot have Trump's IPS in the Asia Pacific region, because in that case, even in a country like Bangladesh would not join. So it will try to actually contain China through engagement, but at the same time, China would try to actually, engage America in such a way that trade becomes vital for US. Trade with China becomes vital for USA. So what will happen then, that China will not say out loud that I am now taking up the world leadership, but at the same time, many things are said, many things are told and are not told openly. I am the leader. So in that context, United States will have a very difficult time to re-establish its former situation. And when it comes former position, and when it comes to Bangladesh's relation with America, mostly our relationship with America is trade and investment. I feel that, uh, you know, GPS will be difficult to get from USA because of the these conditions, 16 conditions which was given by Obama administration in 2013. And we have worked, to improve the situation of the labor and the environments, etc., but not up to the standards, especially when Bernie Sanders, if he becomes the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, it will be difficult for Bangladesh to give any kind of special treatment by U.S. administration. So this is what the business and investment situation can be. When it comes to the geopolitical situation, even in a country like Bangladesh, which is a small country, and especially if India, America dealings its relationship with India vis-a-vis Bangladesh, Bangladesh can become a player. In order to become that kind of player, Bangladesh will have to balance its relationship with India as well as China. I don't think that Biden administration will definitely put pressure on Bangladesh to, to distance from China and, maintain that kind of relationship. But a balanced relationship will be most welcome by the Biden administration. In order to achieve that balanced relationship between India and China, Bangladesh needs to put its house in order. When your house is in turmoil, the foreign policy is conducted by a single person. The foreign policy is not conducted through consultation and through the usual procedure through which a foreign policy. Here, there are all ex-ambassadors, they know it, that, foreign policy has go through a process and procedure, taking into cognizance about the domestic opinion, Bangladesh, how much successful Bangladesh will be to maintain this kind of balanced relationship. I have doubt about that. About the human rights situation and violation of human rights, yes, I feel that there will be pressure on Bangladesh to improve the human rights situation, especially Biden administration and American administration would want Bangladesh to return to a democratic government. Because, it's sometimes, but some moment you will say that, human rights issues, many people are very skeptical, and I am to some extent skeptical also, that this issue is used, sometimes, most of the times actually, for political gain. But when it comes to Bangladesh, it may not be so much for absolutely for political gain, but somewhat political gain, because if you don't have a democratic structure, if you don't have a representative government, Bangladesh's foreign policy will be in disarray. And Bangladesh will not be able to play that kind of role in the geopolitical situation. With that,
Okay.
I will thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dilara Chaudhary, for your deliberations. I'll request now Dr. C.R. Abrar to say something. Dr. Abrar, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
As I said, although I was in International Relations Department, my engagement with the mainstream subject has not been that high. I mainly focused on statelessness, issues of refugees and migration. So I really don't have much to add here. Only thing that I would say here, it's a tremendous learning experience listening to the panelists. I mean, it's true, international relations, has all along been, to a large extent dominated by, very, very obvious national interests and all the fancy institutions in the post-Second World War II period that were set up. Whatever little efficacy they enjoyed for decades have been gradually been undermined, by the countries who, by the countries who actually set them up, and we are all aware of that. It is in that context what we would see that the changes that are taking place in the U.S., to what extent would there be qualitative change? And as we have heard from the panelists, that there will be some change, but meaningful change, of course, is something that may not happen. At the end of the day, they will be guided by their own sort of national interest. In that context, I think when the new, with the election of the government of Biden to presidency, there are 3 or 4 issues that Bangladesh people felt a bit of relief. I think one of the issues is to what extent, the single track approach of endorsing, the way our government had a free go on democracy, on rights, human rights, and other things. At least there'd be some change in terms of that, and the refreshing, the bipartisan effort with regard to RAP, I think really ignited a bit of hope, if not much. That okay, things may change, and that entails a lot of work, for the rights activists here in the country. And we need to sort of keep on highlighting the blatant violations that are taking place in terms of, denying, the right to franchise. The whole, one of the things that people say that our people were more interested in US elections than Bangladesh elections, because that's actually elections. And what happened here, we all know what happened here. So essentially, we have been disenfranchised. We have been turned into subjects. We used to be citizens. Now we are subjects. So in that respect, I think we need to continue our struggle, document them, not because someone else would deliver it, but, that may provide opportunities, for others to act on and may help our process. But fundamentally, we need to, sort of do the task ourselves. And some of our panelists here are doing tremendous job in terms of raising awareness about the authoritarian government that we have here. And in that respect, I think, that adds a lot of value, and we need to really sort of tie up with each other and feed into processes in those countries, because although their policies may be shaped by their own concerns, but we need to find opportunities how to sort of plug in those. And I think some are very strategically placed, and we certainly hope that will be done. The second relief for this, that the single-handed anything that's coming to Bangladesh policies, guided by India, that India was the mediating thing, I think there has been, as rightly pointed out, from Obama's second administration, that has been the trend. And beautifully sort of placed by Professor Riaz, that McDonaldization, I think that has been, and to what extent our policymakers, play the cards right, that would depend how we sort of position ourselves. And the way Vina Sikri and others have, put the current government, some of the position that the pro-Chinese elements have, taken up PM's office, almost in those terms, in TV programs, she said. So I think to a large extent, it would depend the smartness of our policymakers, how they deal with it, and Shagun Bagisha, how they deal with it. The third issue is of the immigration policy, and I really, and third and fourth, and the Rohingya issue. I think these are the 2 issues. It would be wonderful if the panelists, those who are placed in US, if you could sort of focus a bit on what would be likely scenarios, because that would certainly affect, our people, those who are, because many families have their ties and the opportunities for young people to migrate. I think those are important considerations for a range of, middle class, sort of families. Final point is on the Rohingya issue. It is true that we have brought into the I strongly believe that we had much of a choice, but the way we have dealt the Rohingya issue has been a disaster. The foreign policy establishment, the way they guided it, has been a disaster. And in that respect, I don't know how we would sort of address this problem, but to what extent we would sort of take advantage, and the US administration thus far has been only sort of have placed only sort of travel restrictions, sanctions on some officials. So that has been it, and likewise other, regions have done the same thing. So to how we can make it an issue, and to what extent that's possible, I think if the panelists could, throw some light. I would stop there. Sorry, I could not add much value, but I just only highlighted that struggle is ours. We must do it ourselves, particularly on respect of democracy and human rights. But there may be windows of opportunities, that we need to tap. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. No, the very relevant points you have raised. Thank you very much. Now I'll request Dr. Harun to come in, and then I'll go to some of our TDF members. And we're waiting for the second round, of course. So I think the next one will be a little bit brief so that I can get opinion in the second round, including our Dhaka Forum members. Okay, Dr. Harun, please.
Good, excuse me. Good morning and good evening. Thanks, Dr. Salahuddin and my professor, Ambassador Sirajul Islam. The topic I decided to talk is incoming presidency of Joe Biden and global foreign policy with a special reference to Bangladesh. As a matter of fact, I did publish a book, an article during Obama administration and Bangladesh. I basically defined it as pragmatic liberalism, his foreign policies. I think I do see a relevance here with President Biden. I'm calling President Biden because I think several of you did mention about problems with the election and president in the United States, but I strongly believe in the constitutional system in the United States, and it will prevail. Now, going back to my topic, pragmatism means understanding of the realities of the situation and making decisions based on thorough research of these realities. Pragmatism opposes strict adherence to ideological beliefs in pursuing foreign policy. President Biden will inherit a volatile situation due to COVID-19 and the legacy of President Trump, which bewildered the world for its inconsistencies and chaos in foreign policy, uncharacteristics of any recent presidents. Foreign policy of a country is influenced by domestic politics, the nature of the political system, and international environment. In order to understand the foreign policy of the United States, we need to have a good grasp of these forces. Pragmatism is defined by Cohen as conscious preferences for practical solutions and pursuing policies based on facts, evidence, and structured rational choices. President Biden will face the challenge of building trust and respect in US foreign policy, which under President Trump was perceived by the rest of the world as arrogant, erratic, and inconsistent. Biden realizes that in a globalized world, the United States may be the important player, but other countries have a role in world politics. The rise of China may challenge the military and economic dominance of the United States. On the other hand, liberalism emphasizes the deep-held values of the United States. These are promoting democracy and liberty in general. The key features of pragmatic liberalism include the following: promote liberal ideas, emphasize diplomacy in solving conflicts, foster humanitarian assistance, and promote environmental sustainability. Fourth, maintain alliances and multilateral agreements. Promote the national interest, strengthening domestic security through economic welfare. Promote liberal ideas. President Biden will promote liberal ideas as long as it does not threaten national security interests. The values of democracy, equality will be the centerpiece of his presidency. In terms of promoting these values, President Biden will be very careful not to endanger the national interest. President Biden will be tough on undemocratic government. He has already mentioned that there will not be blank checks for the autocratic regimes. His advocacy of solving environmental, health, and immigration problems resonate with the people, transcending the national interest. Emphasize diplomacy in solving the conflict. Moreover, as a pragmatic like Obama, Biden understands the limits of American power. He understands that American military power has been stretched to the maximum, and any further military involvement will be a disaster. As a result, he will emphasize diplomacy over the use of force, foster humanitarian assistance, promote environmental sustainability. The other element of Biden's foreign policy of pragmatic liberalism will be providing humanitarian aid, which broadly includes economic and development assistance. In terms of humanitarian assistance, protecting the environment will become one of the major goals of President Biden, who strongly believes in the US involvement in solving global environmental problems. He pledged to join Paris Climate Agreement, maintain alliances and multilateral agreements. President Biden will promote multilateral alliances and will strengthen the institutions that preserve peace. He firmly believes in strengthening alliances and multilateral agreements in solving the problem. He will join the World Health Organization and will strengthen the NATO based on partnership and cooperation, unlike Trump, who pursued a policy of confrontation. Protect the national interest. President Biden believes that the primary goal of the US foreign policy is the protection of the vital interests, pursuing a geopolitical strategy crucial for America. Strengthening domestic security through economic welfare. Another element of pragmatic liberalism is strengthening domestic security, defined as economic potency of the United States. He believes that the United States cannot play a dominant role in international politics without a strong domestic economic base. Now, with regard to US foreign policy towards Bangladesh under Biden, I would like to say—
Dr. Harun, can you be a little bit brief? Because we have to go for the second round also.
Okay, I think this is important. I'll try to be brief, okay? US policy towards Bangladesh under Biden will be considered from US geopolitical strategy. Biden realizes that China and India are the major actors in South Asia, and China is a rival of the US for influence in the region. It will be interesting to see how Biden will deal with Modi government's policy on NRC and Kashmir. I would predict that Biden will be reluctant to take any strong measures against India and will privately express his displeasure with India. This approach matches with pragmatic liberalism ideology that I have emphasized. Biden will continue its relationship with Quad and will pursue a policy of coexistence rather than confrontation with China. Biden would like to see Bangladesh contributing to the interest of Quad rather than falling into China's orbit. Now, with regard to promoting liberal ideas, based on pragmatic liberalism ideology, President Biden will promote building of the democratic institutions like elections, civil liberties, rule of law, transparency, human rights. However, he believes that democratic institutions must be built with the involvement of the people of Bangladesh. I'm trying to brief, and he will also definitely emphasize diplomacy in solving problems. But I would like to emphasize about his role on environmental sustainability. President Biden will promote humanitarian and environmental sustainability in his relation with Bangladesh. According to the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report in 2018, the United States, along with Bangladesh, China, Egypt, India, Indonesia, Japan, the Philippines, and Vietnam, were 50 million people who will be exposed to the effects of increased coastal flooding by 2040. So he will take very strong measures on environment that will help Bangladesh. Then again, to be brave, I would like to say that Bangladesh President Biden believes that domestic security of a country cannot be sustained without a strong economy. Similarly, he believes that if a developing country suffers from a bad economy, it may fall victim of terrorism. Pursuant to this belief, the United States is interested in promoting trade and business in Bangladesh. President Biden will be more concerned about the protection of labor laws and environmental regulations, especially relating to garment industry. So it will be interesting to see as we wait for President Biden's inauguration on January 20th, 2021. With that, I conclude. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Harun. But I have a counter question to you about economic thing. Bangladesh concession of GSP didn't improve anything about Obama and Trump also. It was status quo. But I don't think Bangladesh will really get any economic value, though our exporters are shouting that they'll do better. Anyway, I have reservation about our RMG and export sector, whether they'll get any benefit from USA. Thank you very much. That is my personal comment about economic.
Yeah.
Now I'll open. I will go, but I think we are running out of time because I want to finish it by another half an hour or so. So second round will be there. So be brief for the again. I'll invite some of our TDF friends. Be very brief. Mr. Shamim wanted to say something, but I'll request be brief then because I promise that there will be a second round for some of the speakers. I would like to come in and give some supplementary observations. Mr. Shamim, please. Please unmute your mic.
Unmute করে দাও, unmute করো, unmute.
Unmute করেন।
Unmute your mic.
এখন শোনা যাচ্ছে?
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks, President Saluddin, for giving me the opportunity. I'll be rather brief because I got a very irritated throat. The temperature in Dhaka has certainly dipped. And plus, I don't want to encroach upon the time that can be given to the guest participants. I feel that now that we have a new administration coming in Washington, we try to engage America, United States, more effectively, more directly. America so far has resorted to a practice. It has happened ever since the Obama administration time to engage itself in hearing on Bangladesh more through India. It has to be more direct. There are some institutional framework between Dhaka and Washington. they have to meet, if necessary, more frequently, more effectively. And another thing that what we want the United States, Washington, to be interested in is what the people here want. I mean, as regards the democracy and re-enfranchisement of the people. There, I'm not at the moment expecting much to happen from Washington, and I would rather suggest that we better wait at least for the first year, because we have seen even during Obama time we didn't see much happening in that front. So we'll have to wait and see. So I would leave at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Shamim. Thank you very much for a very relevant observation. Anybody from our
Yes.
TDF members?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Masood
Oh,
Aziz.
Masood Aziz? Ambassador Masood
Yes,
Aziz?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes,
Yes,
that's right. It's me. Thank
Please,
you,
go ahead.
Mr. President.
I would also like to speak.
I'll-
Thank
I'll be very brief. You know, the effect, the fallout of this election, the RAB, particularly the Rapid Action Battalion, will come under closer scrutiny for, extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. This reminds me of the, fortunately for us, Priya Shaha, a Bangladeshi resident who had complained to Trump in the very early stages about the so-called oppression over the minorities. And so her intention was, stand exposed as of today. It's a very, Biden will face a very daunting and a very, onerous task of reviving US's interest as the oldest democratic polity of 265 years. In India, we see the extremist Hindutvas, variously called by different writers and political commentators as the Bajrangis or the right of the Saffron Brigade. And what is now is of essence for the entire world, for American leadership, is to tackle because the rate at which Trump is not yet finished, he has at least 1 month to go, 30 days. In that 30 days, we can have about 60,000 deaths. This is a reality now. To it already 0.5 million. So there will be about more than 300 deaths in the US. And the American antidote to this COVID-19 is going to be suitable for Bangladesh because it has to be, the vaccine has to be refrigerated in a medium which is in at least at minus 70 degrees centigrade. The Bangladeshi technology as of now can produce, freezing compartments of 20 degrees centigrade, which many of
Ambassador Masood Aziz,
epidemiologists.
let's not go to those.
Yes.
Ambassador Aziz, please, let's not go to those details. We're not going to discuss about those issues now because we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Because I was
No,
just
it's a relevant point.
listening to.
We are all aware of the vaccination politics, vaccination business, and recently, recently,
in the second round, I will.
Let me finish.
The second.
Mr. Ambassador Masood Aziz, let me finish. There's a
yes, I'm hearing
about vaccine. Why do you have to repeat when I'm talking? Please listen. What I'm saying, the vaccination politics, vaccination reaching out, and also the technique, the modified RNA, DNA have raised a lot of questions now, that the injection which will be inserted to modify the RNA, DNA, a lot of experts are now expressing. Dr. Mazhar will know that, because they are saying that it will modify the RNA, DNA, and it's a very completely new practice. Anyway, we are not going to that. Possibly Dr. Mazhar knows better than us. So I'll stop there. But you see, we are not going to those issues right now in the broader. Ambassador Shahid Akhtar wanted to say something. Please, Ambassador Shahid Akhtar.
Well, I will not go into what I said. I will just make a small point. The point is that, after 50 years, nearly 50 years of Bangladesh, we have a senator now in the United States politics. That's a big achievement. And I'm sure there are many people who are well connected now, as I hear, that they will be getting some advisory role within the new government of Biden. So if that is the picture, I think Bangladesh stands a good position to be more visible in US. The point I would like to make over here, but our speakers have not touched much on the immigration, because a lot of people have connectivity with the US, and they have been applied and all their cases are put in abeyance. And I think the Biden government, as I understand, as I've been reading and hearing, that there will be a big opening and big court cases for these families to go and join. And this will be, I will not go into their internal politics. You understand that it would help the Democrats more in that manner, even though if others do not like it. And while maintaining a relationship from the business perspective, I think Bangladeshis, they have a case, they have a point that if the US can consider, and if there is a pressure on Biden to give some sort of relaxation, and that is a big help for the garment exporters. I don't have to go into our relationship with China, because we have business people who are doing business with China, and China has interest to also to activate business activities with Bangladesh. So this is a new development that's going on, and India is coming in as, again, to support Bangladesh in these cases as a competitor. So I'll end over here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Shahid Akhtar. Dr. Mazhar, you would like to say something? Dr. Mazhar? We cannot hear your mic.
Unmute.
Unmute your mic, please. Unmute your mic, please.
Phone bole dao. Phone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we can hear.
Thank you
Please.
so much. Thank you so much. I think this is a learning opportunity for me. While I was listening all the experts, actually, I have only a few points to add. First of all, the way I perceive it, because from as I was, in the UN system, from there, what was my observation, that Bangladesh is not at all a country of importance to America that much, which the other countries are, even many of our neighboring countries. So when I say it, that the first thing the Biden president will be actually looking for is strengthening of the party, because he knows now what is the strength of the two major parties there, Republican and Democrat. So he will try to consolidate as a priority of him, will be his party position for the next 4-year election. That will be one of the priority there. Second thing is, now if we look at the economic power, China is, it is not emerging, it has already emerged as a competitor of America. Now, economic aspect is very important. So here, the most competition will be on this economic, I think, area that they will compete. And the economic power will be, say, if from the Bangladesh perspective, we want to see, then our closeness, in my perspective, will be better, that where from we can get the better benefit for our own growing of our own economy. So our foreign policy, what as it is now very much linked with India, China, and USA. These are the three powers now one is a neighbor, it should be considered as a power also. So there, I think we are to have a very balanced, smart sort of a foreign policy, how we can balance with these three countries, USA, China, and India. So I think it was mentioned here that human rights will be an issue in future Biden policy. But to me, for our, I think what we need is the Rohingya issue should come as the #1 human right issue, because here we have the largest number of Rohingyas as a refugee in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh should smartly play with America, because as this will be one of the issue that how we can take care of this Rohingya people in Bangladesh for their, again, repatriating back to their own country. The other thing you have already mentioned about environment and health as well as the climate change. So that is one of the priority there. I think Bangladesh should take an opportunity so that we can get a sort of a support, because this will be one of the Biden policies that how we can get benefit out of their policy. Just this is in brief. I want to conclude the saying that we must be smart enough in balancing all the three parties, USA, China, and India. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mr. Nasser Bakhtiar would like to say something, then I'll go for the second round to our external speaker. Anything?
Thank you.
Comments,
Thank you. I have actually joined mainly to listen to the distinguished guest here. I have nothing to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll open it. Dr. Riaz, would you like to come? And now I request you to be brief if we want to finish within a different period. So Dr. Riaz is there, Dr. Iftikhar, Shamshir Mabin Chaudhary, whoever. So Dr. Riaz,
if I may,
Salahuddin
Bhai, if I may, just since these 2 points have come up
yeah.
in the conversation, and Professor Sierra brought it up, that those of us who are in the United States should focus or at least highlights these 2 points. One is the immigration issue that came up, which didn't discuss in the first round. 2 things are expected to happen. The first one is there have been a significant number of executive orders which have been issued under Trump's administration regarding the immigration. One is the Muslim ban, and then the family separation. Family separation policy was there, but it was activated and used in a very brutal and inhuman manner. Those executive orders should be rescinded. A bunch of them might be rescinded on 21st of January, if not on 20th, because those are easy thing to do. And then the second part of this would be the more related to longer immigration issues. Some would go back, even in the longer parts, some would go back to what it used to be pre-2016, pre-January 2017, chain migration, family visa, and those sort of things. H-1B might be elevated to the previous system or previous level. Those things would take a couple of months. It is not going to go right away, because there are various elements to it. But most importantly, the immigration issue for the Biden administration would be a reform of immigration policy, a comprehensive immigration reform. That is a likelihood that in 4 years, possibly in the first year or 18 months, there could be a comprehensive immigration reform. Why I'm expecting that one? Because this time around, Republicans or part of it might be interested to get something done, while if they have the Senate under their wing. If not, then it would be easier for the Democrats to do it anyway. But the Republicans might join. That's the point that I want to. So the immigration issue is going to be relaxed gradually to get back to 2016 situation, and eventually might be a broader, wider reform. Second point that came up is Rohingya issue. This is the most problematic part. And Professor Brown would understand it better than I do. I mean, here are two elements to it. United States is likely to have a particular interest in pursuing Rohingya issue because this is a point that pushes on Myanmar, which is a protege of China. So you're not putting China a pressure, but you're actually pinching them and telling them that, you know, we can do this one, we can do this, we can do this. But it has to be under human rights violation, which would require Bangladesh's cooperation. Can Bangladesh cooperate on human rights violation, underscoring that the Myanmar has done it to Rohingyas, but when they're doing it to their own citizens, that needs to be ignored. You know, extrajudicial killing is fine within Bangladesh, but however, if it is Rohingya, if they're killed in Myanmar and come to me, we're going to support it, and please do something for them. You know, that is the balance. That is, you know, that is the point. That's the decision in Shigunbagicha and possibly not Shigunbagicha, somewhere else. You know where that somewhere else is. You know, that is the decision, Bangladesh decision. It is not a Washington decision. This is a Bangladesh decision, Dhaka decision, and decision of certain individual and certain ministry. Let me finish with the final point. Dhaka looks very small from Washington. I've said it many, many times. You know, from Dhaka, Washington looks bigger for whatever reason, even with the diminished influence. Washington is still big. It looks big from Dhaka. Some people may not like my statement because you know, they think Washington is small, but Washington is big, however you put it. And that's why the Washington has always, since second administration of Obama, has gone through Delhi, tried to have this kind of thing. If Dhaka wants to come out of it and have a balanced foreign policy, they have to come out of this binary first. Bangladeshi academics and media seems to be still stuck in this binary that it is either China or India. It's not. However diminished the US power is, US is a player in that region and will be a player. And it is in the Bangladesh interest to make United States a player in this, so that Bangladesh doesn't become, you know, pretty much hostage to either our situation. Again, is Biden administration going to do it for them? I doubt. They might have interest, but they might not do it. Who's going to do it? If Bangladesh wants to get that, Bangladesh will have to make that move. It's not going to happen in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Riaz. I think I tend to agree because unless we become, and Dr. Mazhar was also our political parties, our intellectuals, if we do not improve, if we do not make sound, and I remember Peter Sellers' movie, The Mouse That Roars, the mouse sometimes should also roar, even if it is very small. So that is a part. And about Rohingya, I think our strategy is a little bit relief-oriented thing. Whether they will go to Hassan Chor or they'll get that account, not in the long-term rehabilitation returning. Anyway, so who else? Dr. Dilara Chaudhary, can you be very brief? And Shobhuj, can you come in later part? Huh? After everybody finishes, I think it will be better. Dr. Dilara, please.
I'll be very brief. I'm actually taking the cue from Dr. Riaz Ali, as well as from Ambassador Mazahar and others who have spoken about Bangladesh's democracy and Bangladesh's hope uh, for democracy getting some kind of support from Washington. Somebody said here, and it is correct, that this election, the Bangladeshis were more interested than the Americans themselves, perhaps. May not be true, but people in Bangladesh and those who have been living in United States, Bangladeshi origin, were enthusiastic about the victory of Biden. And with one hope in mind, that Biden, has spoken all throughout his political career about human rights, taking stands on human rights and also on democracy. And especially this letter by the 9 senators to the Secretary of State calling for the ban on these two important government officials for human rights violation. To Bangladeshis, this has been a strong message that Biden administration will take up the human rights violations in Bangladesh. But again, I will echo with others that it is us who will have to actually do the groundwork. That means in Bangladesh, the intellectual, the civil society, and others must get connected with those who are fighting for democracy and who are fighting for human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dilal. Who else wanted to come? Nobody? Dr. Istikhar? Like to.
Thank you. Just to elaborate on something that I'd said earlier, when I said that Biden's policy will probably be more institutional. Just to elaborate on this, you see, foreign policy making, the process. Now, we talk of foreign policy sometimes as if it's a one policy outcome. People have sat together and decided on a course of action, and there are other people's implementing that course. It is not always as simple as that. For instance, the more complex the actor is, like the United States, very complex actor, the more complex is the foreign policy making procedure. Now, in America, there are many elements within the Washington foreign policy system. These are, Kissinger had called them some chiefs, some Indians. In other words, some are key players like the State Department, Department of Defense, Senate, committees, political parties, academia, etc., think tanks. So these are pressure groups who compete with one another for the ears of the big people, for the ears of the president and the ears of others. So mathematically, the outcome is always is not a rational outcome. So in Idi Amin's Kenya, the outcome of foreign policy input equaled output, because what went into Idi Amin came out as an output. So it was a rational process. But in America, there are many things going into the policy-making quadrant, and what comes out is not necessarily what is absolutely rational. We want to bear that in mind. Also, the institutions of foreign policy, now this is just for information, with regard to the State Department, which everybody knows that it's very demoralized at this point in time, there are two very important reports that have just come out. One by the Council on Foreign Relations and other by the Harvard University group. Now, they have suggested a plethora of reforms for the State Department. These reforms include elements such as 90% of the ambassadors in due course should be from the Foreign Service, that there should be different kinds of training, and there should be another system which will sort of energize many of you. Those who have retired from the service, they should go into some kind of a reserve, like in the army, and to be called upon to do specific tasks. Now, we are not certain as to who, of course, the Secretary of State will be, whether it's Blinken or Coons or Susan Rice. We expect this person to be influenced to a certain extent by these two reports, and we will probably see some kind of a change in the structure of the State Department, which will be interesting for us to follow. And interestingly, they have also suggested that the name of the Foreign Service be changed into U.S. Diplomatic Service, because diplomacy entails much more than the implementation of somebody else's policy. It also involves the execution of it. And they want to put this into some kind of a legal framework by putting through some of these foreign policy institutions and policies, etc., through the parliament as law, so that the Foreign Office, which is the State Department, the Foreign Service, and the players of the Foreign Service, ambassadors, etc., are protected by law, just as the military.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Istikhar. And if Mr. Shamsher Mubin Chaudhary would like to come in, or I'll go to Shobuj
I'll just very briefly say today is 21st of November, which is the Armed Forces Day in Bangladesh. So it's very important because I was one of the founding members of the Bangladesh Armed Forces. For me, it's of course especially. And I'm drinking coffee from a cup that celebrates the depth of the US-Bangladesh defense cooperation, just to put it in context. Now, I'll just very briefly touch on a few things. And this is a question I present to Ambassador Siraj and also to Dr. Ali Riaz. Given the fact that Trump administration, having run out of all the legal and constitutional means, do something, even in the realm of foreign policy, that will put the Biden administration in severe test or challenge, because Pompeo is visiting regions that are very, very dangerous. Is it possible that he will try to make some kind of a strike on Iran and put Biden on a position of having to take a decision on that straight away? I mean, it might be a distraction. That is my first question. On a matter of comment on the Rohingya, I fully agree with the guest who said that we failed. I think we shot ourselves on the foot by rushing into signing a so-called agreement with China, because China, let us face it, is a good friend, but is the major impediment in the repatriation process. My danger, my fear, and I'll be very candid about it, that the situation with the Rohingya refugees will become something like it happened with the Palestinian refugees. They'll never go back to their homeland. Regarding RCEP, I was shocked to discover 3 days ago that nobody in the Bangladesh government has any concept what RCEP is about. And I was shocked to hear the Commerce Secretary say that we are not interested in RCEP because by going into free trade arrangement, we will lose earning import duties from China, which I think is ridiculous. That will be offset by investment from China and other RCEP countries. So these are the fault lines that Bangladesh is in. Forget about coming to a more like a bipartisan situation or anything else. But maybe in over course of time, TDF will also take up these issues and we can discuss them. Rohingyas, we have shot ourselves on the foot. Regarding what goes to the ICJ, we had no reason to rush into signing an agreement which Myanmar does not even recognize as a toilet paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shafir. Let's say it about our bureaucrats. Most of them I know who were hardly joint secretary, deputy secretary, they are now secretaries. We know their capabilities. I think we may have a separate session from TDF, role of bureaucracy in Bangladesh, quality and other things. Anyway, that is a lighter thing. Ambassador Siraj Islam, we would like to come in and we will conclude by, there's another 5 minutes left. So we promise that we'll finish by 12 o'clock.
Salahuddin Bhai, Shamshir Chaudhary raised a question directly to me, and I was wondering, I mean, asking us, including Ambassador Islam, to guess on what Trump can do. I mean, I don't know whether Trump himself knows what he's going to do tomorrow. Having said that, you know, your concern is really well-founded, I would say. The next 2 months and exactly 60 days that are left, Trump administration is going to do things that is going to make the Biden administration's life hell, whatever way they can do it. And foreign policy would be one area that they might do. Trump had considered, or at least was interested in striking on Iran. So anything that is they do is from here on, I mean, practically since November 5th, anything and everything Mr. Trump is doing is not about protecting. One is protecting himself from the legal, legal things that might come after he becomes a citizen, and possibly a lot of things are being done behind the scene. But most importantly, his goal seems to me, at least, make the Biden administration's life hell, whatever means necessary. So yes, foreign policy is an area that they might do.
Thank you.
He has already ordered the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan and Iraq.
Okay, I think we are on the word, just on the concluding thing. Any compelling thing, Dr. Mazhar, because
I'm just want to make a
space.
simple, very simple একটা পয়েন্ট আমি রেজ করতে চাচ্ছি, সেটা হলো যে এখন বাইডেন তার টিম নিয়ে অলরেডি আগে থেকে কাজ করছে, এখনো কাজ করছে তাদের ফরেন পলিসি নিয়ে। আমাদের কি করণীয়? আমার সামনে আপনারা যারা আছেন সবাই যথেষ্ট এক্সপেরিয়েন্স এবং নলেজেবল অ্যাবাউট ফরেন পলিসিস এন্ড অল। আমার মনে হয় যেটা আমাদের করা উচিত, উই আর টু ফলো ইন্ডিয়া, চায়না অ্যান্ড ইউএসএ, যে তাদের পলিসি আফটার দি শিফটিং অফ দি গভর্নেন্স ইন আমেরিকা, যে seriously study what their policies are actually following after the American Biden policy. সেটা আমাদেরকে সিরিয়াসলি স্টাডি করতে হবে এবং তারপরে আমাদের যেটা করণীয় আমাদের করতে হবে। নাথিং টু বি ইন এ হারি, তাড়াহুড়ো করার কোনো প্রয়োজন নাই। লেট আস স্টাডি এন্ড দেন উই জাস্ট ফলো হোয়াট টু ডু।
If I may, the Bangladeshi think tank should do is actually do a scenario exercises,
right?
What could be the scenarios, and suggest to Bangladeshi diplomats and foreign office that these are the possible scenarios. If they want to listen, I don't know if they will be willing to listen. That these are the scenarios and these are the potential steps for each scenario. That is what the think tanks are supposed to do.
Bangladesh think tank should first of all think. Bangladesh think tank should first of all think.
That I cannot suggest. Shamsar bhai, that I cannot suggest. That would be your job to do.
Economy should be the priority.
Sword,
Bangladesh economy.
The next question is whether they will listen.
You know, in a long run, we are all dead. So at the long run, kore ততক্ষণে বাংলাদেশ হারিয়ে যাবে। আর ওদিকে anyway, thank you. And সবুজ short করে দেন, then we'll conclude. I don't have anything to say.
আমি short করছি. Okay, thank you. We are towards the end of a 2 hours long, webinar, and it was very invigorating, no doubt, and very interesting. And a lot of things have come out, especially the last day, Dr. Ali Riaz jeta bollo. Out of this, the ideas that have come up, the suggestions that we as a think tank, the TDF, could in the course of the next, the time ahead, we could get together on a series of, webinars and come out with, some projections and recommendations. That's a very good idea, and TDF should take it very seriously. Having said that, Shamsher, the question that Shamsher raised about what can Donald Trump do between now and 20th of January in making, quoting something from Ali Riaz, making the life of Biden hell in terms of foreign affairs. He did try about 10 days ago. He did try to strike the nuclear in Iran, but his own people around him, they really pulled him down. They very seriously, this is the only thing they did since the election, where they pulled him down from going to Iran and striking. But সেখানে একটা কথা বলতে হবে, General Mark Milley, seeing what Donald Trump is capable of doing, he did come out with a statement which did not get very reflected in media as much as it should have been. He said very clearly, as looking at what Donald Trump was doing, he said, the military does not serve a king or a queen, neither a dictator nor a tyrant. It serves the constitution of the people of the United States, which means in terms of Shamsher's fears, he cannot, what he did, as I think Dr. Dilara Chaudhary pointed out, he withdrew troops, which is well within his capability and powers. He withdrew troops both from Afghanistan and Iraq. And that's a very bad thing, something he did for Biden, which Biden will face a lot of problems, because that has put into jeopardy the peace negotiations in Afghanistan, where it has encouraged the Taliban by withdrawing the troops from Afghanistan. The other thing, iftibai jeta boleche, a discussion what came out, very substantive, is that we are on the cusp of a major change in terms of US's relations to South Asia. Previously, in entire period of Obama, it was, he had sort of given India the role to look over South Asia. Not only it was Obama, it was the same thing with Bush, and it was, I think, the same thing with Bill Clinton. Sheikhan থেকে we're on the cusp. Because of the neo-fascist regime in India, Biden administration is willing, with Kamala Harris and the strong letter that came from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is bipartisan. The Menendez যেটা লিখেছে, সেটা indications are Americans will not be seen were on the side of a neo-fascist regime, and they have identified the regime of Narendra Modi as neo-fascist, and have put them on hold. That is a scope, that is a window of opportunity for Bangladesh. But Bangladesh window of opportunity capture korte hole, and as Dr. Dilaraj Chaudhary pointed out, we are not united ourselves. Sekhane we have tremendous opportunity. For the first time, America is willing to deal with Bangladesh directly, and because of the China factor, but America is more willing to deal with Bangladesh for the first time, perhaps in many decades, as Dr. Iftikhar Chaudhary pointed out very clearly. But we are absolutely united at a very critical time in our foreign policy and strategic relations. Seta parbo ki parbo na, I don't know, but that is an opportunity we have. The other thing that has come up is that Dr. Abrar boleche, disenfranchisement. From 3rd of November till today, disenfranchisement has become a very critical and vital word in American politics, and for Biden administration, a very catchy. And Bangladesh is the country that has been disenfranchised since 2014. 2014 election, amra kyo vote dengi. 2018, it was a midnight election. We did not even know what happened in that election. So if our people, the civil society, and those who are talking about our voting rights, our human rights, if they were united, Washington under Biden is just ready to listen. Aage ki hoyeche? People would say the Democrats are naturally inclined to relationship with India. Those days are gone. And Shira Giese, because Dr. Iftikhar said, Hindutva. Hindutva is,
okay, sure.
I mean, give me another few minutes. Hindutva is fascism. Hindutva is Hitler's ideology. This has come very on the absolute wrong side of Biden administration. But whether we'll be able to get it for our advantage is on our civil society, on our opposition, political parties, they are in utter disarray. So there is a lot of opportunity. And finally, Dr. Abrar Boleche and Dr. Ali Riaz also touched on those points, is immigration and other things that were stuck up under Donald Trump's 4 years. Those are going to get a very positive push from Biden administration. Already Muslim ban pore, he has already spoken on Muslim ban. He has already spoken on Dhaka, and he's already spoken about changes in the immigration policy. So we are under Biden administration, we are going to heave a sigh of relief in a lot across the arena. Ki hobe na hobe will depend entirely on how prepared we are. Our final kotha holo, Biden administration, and because what was happening in India, for the first time in many decades, we are ready to bypass India and establish a relationship with America. If we do that, we can do it with China and go to the rest of the world and overstep India for the first time in our history. That is my final point.
Thank you, Subodh. Thank you, everybody. I'll just take 1 minute just to thank all of you, especially Dr. Ali Riaz, Dr. Haroon, Ambassador Sharma Chaudhary, Dr. Dilaraj Chaudhary, Sierra Abrar, and of course our good friends of TDF and Shabuz for issue paper. And it was very interesting. In fact, last conclusion which Dr. Ali Riaz and Shabuz and others, Dr. Mazhar also, we have to we have to tidy our own house. Unless we as a Bangladeshi, we do not practice. For example, Myanmar, I had the chance to go to Myanmar. They do, besides Rohingya, they do very good, for example, exchange of information on maritime border and sea block thing. You know, Bangladesh took a lot of time to submit those information to international court. But Myanmar is very smart, and India, of course. Similarly, Vietnam, everything they do, they're well prepared. And our people, as somebody mentioned, our Commerce Secretary doesn't know, and most of them do not know, but they talk a lot. So we have to really act now. Act now. Know-how is required, but we'll have to do how. Act now is very important for our part. Intellectuals, of course, the policy makers, politicians, very, very important. So that's, and I hope TDF will try to contribute something now, what to be done. Of course, they might not listen, but still that we have to do that. Thank you very much. And it was an excellent thing, and it's being recorded. and we hope to send it to you, and we'll also host it in our web page so that people can listen to it. And we are looking forward to you for next webinar, whatever. So once again, have a good day. Stay safe. Take care. Things are not very good about the COVID front. It's a very ominous thing in every country. So, and even the United States, so everywhere in the world. So wish you all the best and stay safe. Thank you very much. Good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Salam.